Hello, good evening, and welcome to another The Golf Week That Was live podcast. So, as usual, please get involved, get into the live comments, and contribute to tonight's podcast. In tonight's subjects, we have the Honda Classic, the Indian Open on the DP World Tour. Liv Golf had its first tournament of 2023. We'll have a little talk about that. Liv Transfers. Because we didn't have a podcast last week, we didn't really get to talk about that. So I think that's worth talking about. Netflix Full Swing. And also, I want to talk about world ranking systems. The key word there being systems, not system. So a little bit of housekeeping first. So I'm sorry for a bit of confusion on this. I was intending to move this podcast onto the new channel that I started up. But this week last weekend, I went to the golf show at the NEC here in the UK, and I had some very, very good conversations with some golf brands. And it came across that actually having the podcast or having a podcast on this channel is going to be quite important moving forward. So this podcast is going to stay on the Scratch at 50 channel, but it is the only live content that's going to be done. I think once I built this studio, I got all a bit giddy and excited and did a little bit too much live content. And, it was probably a little bit too much because people like the golf course content on this channel. So it's going to be 99.9% golf course content and then just this live podcast. So, okay, so that's done. Channel-wise, just wanted to mention that we've launched a new series called Caddy Stories. So many of you might know that my brother is a full-time professional caddy in the States, and we've started a sort of real raw documentary series about his life as a caddy. He's got a mixture of being a club caddy at two of the most amazing golf courses in America, but also he does caddy for some professionals that are sort of on the Corn Ferry Tour who are trying to make it onto the PGA Tour. So he's going to be recording lots of content, send it over to me. I edit it together, and then we're going to put that out as a series. The first one went out last week. It's been received really well, and that's called Caddy Stories. So keep an eye out for that. There's another one coming this Sunday where they've played in another PGA Tour Monday qualifier. So good viewing again there. Okay, so that's the housekeeping done. Quick one about my golf week. Absolutely nothing to report whatsoever. I've not played. I've been really busy with work. The reason I didn't do a podcast last week was because I was away working. So I haven't had a chance to play any golf whatsoever. Did manage to go to the golf show at the NEC. I did a video of that while I was there as well, which is already out on the channel, where I tried to champion some of the more niche, smaller brands, which was great. It was great to do that. And I always like to try and champion the little guys kind of thing. All the big brands were there. Your TaylorMade, your Titleist, your Pings, your PXGs, your Mizunos. They were all there with stands, but it was a lot harder to talk to them. So got to talk to some really good brands with some really good products. Spoke to some of the big brands as well, and actually had some really, really constructive talks. So watch this space for what might be coming on the channel in the future. Okay, so on to the first subject. Like I say, get stuck into the live comments. We're going to start with the Honda Classic. So it's a really iconic PGA Tour event, this, but it does feel like it's kind of lost its way in recent years. And I think this year it kind of got to its lowest point I can ever remember. Because the PGA Tour's now done these designated events, and this hasn't been chosen as a designated event, it means that the field is considerably weaker than what it would like. All the big players were having a week off between Riviera the week before and Bay Hill, which is coming up this week, I think, or next week. So I just think it's a shame for this event, really. And obviously it's resulted in Honda, leaving as a sponsor. Honda has sponsored this event for over 40 years. So I think it's quite significant that they've decided to actually stop their sponsorship. But you can kind of understand why. It's all about, value for money. It obviously cost them a lot of money to sponsor that event. And apparently Jack Nicklaus was in the booth and he was saying that they give something like $6 million to charity through that event. So it's a lot of money And if they now feel that they're not going to get, the sort of exposure that they would ideally like for that kind of investment, because none of the big players are playing in it, then you can understand why they've decided to leave. What do you think? Do you think that the PGA, the Honda Classic at PGA National should be, treated a bit better? Should be given a bit more substance within the PGA Tour? I think it should be, but I suppose you can't. If you're only going to have 20 designated events, you can't pick them all, can you? So there's always going to be some casualties. It was won by Chris Kirk, who's actually quite a nice story here, because I don't know too much about Chris Kirk. I know that he's won on the PGA Tour before, but I did a little bit of research into him, and the guy's been through quite a bit of a rough patch. He's suffered from addictions and depression. Alcoholism in particular, obviously got to an incredibly low point in his life. So for him to fight back from that kind of point, probably the lowest point of his life I can imagine, to actually becoming a PGA Tour winner is pretty impressive. And, fair play to him. So, yeah, big round of applause for Chris, because, it's a lot easier when you're in that situation to just disappear into a dark hole and never be seen again, and actually fight your way out and get to the top of the PGA Tour. So, Kent Nicholson's in on the comments. Yeah, painter shoes. So he obviously watched my my video from the show. So yeah, I met this brand called Painter Shoes. Got real pedigree. The guys who are behind this have designed golf shoes. I found this out afterwards, so I didn't get a chance to involve it in the video. But the guys behind Painter Shoes have been involved in designing golf shoes for the likes of Nike for sure. And I'm pretty sure they were involved in designing some golf shoes for Tiger Woods as well. So there's some real pedigree there. There was some really interesting technology in there. I am very hopeful that I'm going to get a pair of those. I can see Kent saying here that he's not 100% on them, especially in our weather in the UK. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, but hopefully I'll be able to get some, do a review, test them out, and then be able to maybe put your mind at rest as to the Painter shoes. But basically what I saw at the show was very, very, very promising. So that's Painter, which is Payntr. Definitely worth going to have a look at a new brand in the golf shoe market. But back to the Honda Classic. So yeah, Chris Kirk, fantastic. I think the other one that you've got to mention here is Ryan Gerard, who was a Monday qualifier. And this is particularly poignant for me and my brother, because you may have seen Grant's video from playing in the Monday qualifier with his professional, Chris Crisologo. They tried to qualify for the Honda Classic on the Monday qualifier. He played pretty well. He shot 2 under, but you need to be sort of -6, -7 in these Monday qualifiers to get a shot at it. So the standard is just ridiculously high. But they played with Ryan Gerard. They actually played with him. Grant, saw firsthand, that a guy who, is obviously a great player, but certainly don't feel like he's any better than Chris, who he caddies for. Got through the Monday qualifier, and then he's gone on and he's changed his life. He picked up $400,000, and he's got into the next event in Puerto Rico. So well done to Ryan Gerard. And that is, that is the great thing about the PGA Tour, isn't it? When people are looking at the PGA Tour and Liv Golf, we're going to get into Liv Golf a little bit later. But, someone like Ryan Gerard can't get onto the Liv Tour and change his life and earn $400,000 because he needs to be invited onto it. Although actually, there is a little bit of a qualification to the Liv Golf now. Again, we'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, I just think it's fantastic that a guy like Ryan plays in the Monday qualifier. He's a complete nobody. He's never had I don't think he's had a PGA start before. Grant, and Chris, who Grant was caddying for, play with him. He qualifies, he goes on, and then he finishes tied 4th in the Honda Classic. What an amazing story. And $400,000, I mean, yeah, just shows you how much you can change your professional golf life in just 1 week. Just 1 week. And I know that's what Grant and Chris are always thinking about, that they're just 1 week away from everything changing. So, well done to Ryan Gerard. Other notables were Seb Straka, defending champion. Never easy to defend your title, but tied 5th as defending champion, I think, was also a very good showing by him. And I still think he's got a good chance of getting into the European Ryder Cup team. I keep forgetting that Seb Straka is actually, European. I keep thinking he's American because obviously he went through the American system. Shane Lowry tied 5th. I think he was the favourite going in, and still a really strong showing. Sean Lowry tied 5th. I think that's a good result for him. So, but apart from that, there weren't really any other sort of names that that were at the top of the leaderboard. But I just think the Honda Classic, it's kind of lost its way a little bit. It needs a little bit. I don't know what they're going to do, whether they can change its position in the schedule, but then you've got the Florida Swing, which has always got to take part at this time of the year, and then you've got the Players, you've got Bay Hill. They're always going to be ahead of it for sure. So I just don't see how they can really rejuvenate the Honda Classic in the future, but we'll see what happens. So onto the Indian Open on the Europe DP World Tour. So this is actually a bit of a coincidence because, believe it or not, I had a little look into a possible trip to India for filming some content. I came across something on one, I think it was on like Golf Digest or Golf Monthly or something. And it was like, unknown gems that are in India. And I just thought, well, I wonder how much it costs to travel to India. And it's quite cheap when you get there. So I had a little look into it, and there are some absolutely incredible golf courses in India. I mean, it's absolutely crazy, but cheap they are not. They are not cheap. And this one is designed by Gary Player, and it would appear from the sort of research that I did that Gary Player has designed a lot of golf courses in India. They're all amazing, but they're all pretty super expensive to play. Certainly out of the reach of Indian golfers trying to become professional golfers. They're not going to get their start on these golf courses for sure. They're for the very, very rich in India, which is sad in a way, I suppose. But anyway, an amazing golf course, and Marcel Seam won. And here's another fantastic story, because Marcel Seam, 10 years ago was a really, really established name in European golf, and he completely lost his way. I must admit, because I've been away, I've not had as much chance to do as much research, so I'm not sure of the reasons why his game fell away so far. I don't know whether it was injury, I don't know whether it was confidence, I don't know whether he got the yips, I've got no idea what it was. But he lost his card, he went to the qualifying school at least a couple of times and failed, and then actually dropped onto the Challenge Tour, which is it's such a small tour for someone who's played at the top of European golf. I mean, you're not earning any money whatsoever, really. But fair play to him. He earned his way back onto the European Tour through the Challenge Tour, and he's now won twice, I think. I think he's won twice. Anyway, he's definitely, So what another great story. He's gone from being in the complete golfing wilderness to being a European Tour winner. And remember that the top 10 on the European Tour get PGA Tour cards now. So, that's a massive, massive opportunity for these players for sure. So let's see which of these European players are going to get those top 10 spots. I mean, I'm thinking Tommy Fleetwood, for instance, he lost his PGA Tour status. So he'll definitely be trying to make sure that he finishes top 10. And you would think that if Tommy plays enough European Tour events, then he should, with the quality of his golf, he should get top 10. But for players like Marcel Seam, it's a great opportunity for him to, get a tour card. And this win is definitely putting him in a strong position to do that. Another notable that I notice is Thorbjørn Olesen, who, again, in the past has been an incredible talent from Denmark. Now, he had a little bit of a dodgy period where he basically got drunk on a plane coming back from a tournament. I think he'd been taking some medication as well. It was just a bad combination. And he was accused of assaulting someone on the plane. and then he was suspended from the tour while the court case was going on, and then ultimately the court case he was found not guilty, so he was then reinstated back on the European tour, and he's basically pretty much picked up from where he left off. This guy is a proper striper. I mean, this guy absolutely can play. So he's already won this year already. He had another top six. He finished tied sixth. I think he's going to be very much in the picture for a European Ryder Cup spot. The European Ryder Cup team is going to be interesting, isn't it? Obviously, we've obviously got this thing at the moment where, it should be very soon actually, where we should find out the verdict on whether Liv golfers are going to be allowed to play on the DP Tour. I'm pretty sure that if the Liv golfers win that, then that means they are eligible to play in the Ryder Cup because they will be European Tour members as well as Liv Tour members. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I'm guessing that if that's the case. Now, that's going to open up a whole can of worms because, John Rahm has been quite open in saying that he thinks that Sergio Garcia should be playing in the European Ryder Cup team, where obviously Rory McIlroy, who's fallen out with Sergio, would definitely not want Sergio in the team. So it could start a little bit of a rift in the European team, and the strength of the European Ryder Cup team over the years has been its sort of camaraderie and its togetherness, and I think that's really in danger of falling apart depending on how this all goes this year. Luke Donald's got a pretty tricky time to try and get the balance right between getting a European team that's strong enough to give what is now a very strong young US team a game, but also making sure that there's not some bad apples in there that could sort of upset the apple cart in there, if you like. So, but Thorbjorn Olsen is definitely, he's definitely one that could be in the team for sure. He's a proper player. He's back to his best. And he's playing really well. So there's not a lot else to say about the Indian Open, to be honest, because again, the DP World Tour, I said it in the last podcast, it's struggling. There's no one of any names on there. The best thing that could happen to the DP World Tour is if the Liv golfers win that, if they win that court case. And I'm convinced that Keith Pelley, the CEO of the DP World Tour, puts his head on the pillow every night, absolutely praying that the Liv golfers win that court case, because he can come out and say, well, we tried to stop it, we did everything we could, but there's nothing we can do now. They've been told that they can play, so he puts him in the clear in that view. But then these events are going to be strengthened so much, and there's going to be so much focus on them. There's going to be a bit of spice in them when these Liv golfers go and play in these events. It'll be the best thing that could possibly happen to the DP World Tour, in my opinion. Get into the comments and let me know whether you think you disagree. There's some people out there are just like, no, Liv golfers, they made their choice, they went and took the money, and they should just stay on their tour. And I get it, I understand what you're saying, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm looking at this purely from the DP World Tour. Okay, that flipping tour has been on its knees and been bleeding players for 10 years, for over a decade. It's been on its knees. It needs something. It needs an influx. And these Liv golf, could you imagine if Cam Smith, Dustin Johnson, Patrick Reed, Lee Westwood, Ian Poulter start turning up for some of these events? I mean, you're trying to tell me that that's not going to, be an injection of interest and an injection, a big injection of possible sponsorship money. Think about the amount of media that's going to be looking at those events. It's a no-brainer for me. Let the Liv golfers play the DP World Tour. We're going to find out pretty soon whether that's the case, because the court judgment is due in a very short amount of time. It could even be in the next 7 days, I think. So that brings us nicely onto Liv Golf. So they had their first event at Mayakoba in Mexico. It's a former PGA Tour course, event holder. It's a fantastic golf course. It's a tough golf course. It's incredibly tight. You cannot spray it there. You cannot hit it offline, or you're going to be racking up double bogeys in a hurry. Now, I did watch it. I had to watch it on the app. So the Liv also they launched a new app, and I have to say the app is pretty good. It's pretty good. It's got lots of information on there. It's nicely presented. Liv, and Greg Norman was tweeting something about, it's the most downloaded app of the, and I was like, wow, really? So I went and had a look, and when I looked just before this podcast, it had had 10,000 downloads, which isn't, it's not exactly something to get too excited about, is it? 10,000 downloads, but I suppose it's all small steps for Liv Golf. But it wasn't on YouTube, which is where I watched it last year. So I watched it on my phone. Now, the telly in our spare room, you can't cast to it. So I couldn't cast my phone screen to the TV to watch it. So I found myself just watching it on my phone. And it kind of really just brought home to me that Liv, they need a UK television deal. And they need one pronto. I mean, it was rumoured that they were going to announce one, and it's not happened. But then there seems to have been a lot of rumours about Liv Golf announcing stuff, and it's just sort of not happened. We're going to get into transfers a little bit later. But, watching it on my phone on an app was pretty crap, to be honest. And I found it hard to really get into it just watching it on the small screen. I did watch the last round from about the last 8 holes, something like that. Charles Howell III, I mean, in the last podcast, we did a thing about the angels and villains and all the angels being on the PGA Tour, and it appears that all the villains are on the Liv Tour. And for sure, there are a lot of villains or, sort of like more polarizing characters on Liv. So, the likes of, obviously, Patrick Reed is an obvious one, but, Pat Perez is outspoken. There's a list of them, isn't there? But Charles Howell III is definitely not one of them. You couldn't wish to meet a nicer guy. I mean, just the most clean-cut, clean living, very religious, doesn't drink alcohol. You could see that he was a little bit uncomfortable, I think, with the champagne spraying on the winner's podium. But, I mean, he played phenomenal. I mean, he was just striping his tee shots. And, on that golf course, if you actually kept your tee shots in play, then there was some birdies to be had because it's not the longest golf course. And that's basically what he did. He kept his tee shots in play, and, his iron shots were solid, and he held some putts, and he won pretty easily in the end. And then, of course, you've got the team element. So, I've got to say, and Charles Howell's team also won, the Crushers, with Bryson DeChambeau, Anaban Lahiri, and Paul Casey. Paul Casey played well. He had a good finish. So Charles actually picked up $4 million for the individual and $750,000 for the team. Now, as I understand it, each player doesn't get the $750,000. It kind of goes into a pot now, and then all their expenses for the team, so their flights, their hotels, their all those kind of expenses come out of that pot. And then whatever's left in that pot at the end of the season, they then divide it 4 ways. That's how I've done my research, and that's how I understand it. So obviously, winning that one and putting $3 million straight into that pot pretty much sorts out the Crushers in business class for the rest of the year. But obviously, the individual, he just puts $4 million straight in his bank account, and fair play to him. That's why people have gone to Liv. You can earn crazy money. And Charles Howell certainly picked up some crazy money this week. Notables. Now, I've put down Cam Smith. Cam Smith finished on -6 and actually didn't start very well, but finished very well. I think we've definitely got to start talking about Cameron Smith for the Masters. Can Cameron Smith win the Masters? What do you think? I think it's an obvious yes, he can win the Masters. He's got a great record at the Masters. He seems to be still playing some pretty good golf. But I think the notables on the Liv side of things were more notable by the ones that were out of form. So Phil Mickelson's still struggling. Brooks Koepka came 31st on +1. Dustin Johnson came 37th on +4. Patrick Reed came 38th on +4. And I think overall, when I was watching the Liv over the weekend, I just got the feeling that they all just looked a bit rusty. And I think, you've got the long layoff, which is obviously great for them, spending some time with their families and recovering, getting some rest. But also, I think it does lead to quite a bit of rustiness in the early part of the season. I think that looked quite obvious to me. There was rumours after the Netflix Full Swing documentary. Again, we've got that to come a bit later. That Brooks Koepka was thinking, or he was, rumoured to be unhappy on Liv, and he was thinking he's made a mistake, and he's thinking of going back to the PGA Tour. Having watched that Netflix documentary where he's quite open and talking about his injury problems, just purely from that point of view, I think that the Liv Tour is the best place for Brooks Koepka to try and win majors moving forward, because it's just going to give his body a rest. On the PGA Tour, you have to play 15 events, and a player like him now would have to play 20 designated events. His body cannot hold up to that amount of tournaments. But I think the 14 tournaments on Liv with a massive break in the off season to let him rest up his body, I think it's the best place for Brooks Koepka. I think, I don't know whether those rumours are true or not, but I honestly think going back to the PGA Tour, if he is even considering it, and he's come out and said that he isn't, and it was all misquoted and stuff, so, we'll just take him on face value for that. But I honestly think that Liv Tour is the best place for him. He's going to get to rest up and try and, get over those injuries better. And at the end of last year, he was playing great and he won a tournament, so I wouldn't rule out Brooks Koepka in the future for the majors this year if he manages to stay healthy, because he's had more of a rest on the Liv Tour. So that's it really for the Liv Tour at Mayakoba. It was all a little bit underwhelming because I was watching it on the app on a small screen. I don't know what the viewing figures were on the CW channel in the States. I did see lots of screenshots online where it had the channel. It was either CBS, ABC, I don't know who it was, the American channel. And next to it in the guide was the CW channel with the Liv Golf Mayakoba. So you saw both of them in the planner with your remote right next to each other. So I think it'd be quite easy for people to find, but I'm not sure what their viewing figures were like. But for the UK, they need to get a UK television deal. And I said it in the last podcast when we really discussed that at length. Liv, just give it to the BBC for free. You don't need the money. You've got pots of money to get this thing up and running before you need to start returning a profit, which I'm guessing is going to be in 2024. The BBC has got no golf now. It's given up its rights to the Masters. They're not even going to be showing the highlights of the Masters. So there's now zero golf on the BBC. And apparently it was a cost-cutting exercise why they have stopped with the Masters. So it's a perfect storm for both of them. The BBC gets, great top quality golfers back on its channel, and it's not going to cost them anything. And Liv Golf get a load of eyeballs on their product to help, build it for the future. That just seems like the perfect scenario for me. Maybe they've offered it to the BBC and they turned it down because they still think it's a little bit, toxic with the Saudi Arabian backing. But I did notice that, that wasn't mentioned once at Mayakoba. Not once, not in one press conference. So it does seem that now that storm has been weathered, and, that will annoy some people because they see it just purely as a sports washing exercise. And once you get to that point where no one's questioning it anymore, then, they've achieved their goal. But, it couldn't go on forever. You can't keep just, asking players about their morals when they've already answered it multiple times, because you're just asking the same questions over and over again. It all starts to get a bit boring in the end. So on to the Liv Transfers. I wanted to just touch on this because obviously we didn't have the podcast last week because I was away working. So if we just rewind back to December here, there was some very, very strong rumours that the likes of Xander Schauffele, Patrick Cantlay, those two in particular, were very strongly linked. And Cantlay has never, ever, said anything to kind of distance himself from Liv. He always says something along the lines of, I'm open to everything. I'm not ruling anything out, all that kind of thing. So it kind of looked like that he was going to go. And Schauffele, very, very similar as well. And they would have been real needle movers for Liv if the sort of people, 2 players from the top 10 had left the PGA Tour to go to Liv. That would have been huge, absolutely huge. And for a while there, it was being rumored that it was going to happen, and it was going to be another really massive coup for Liv with players. But in the end, that did not happen. That did not happen. The players that moved across were Mito Pereira, Sebastian Munoz, Danny Lee, Dean Burmester, and Thomas Peters. Now, Thomas Peters is a good player. Mito Pereira is a good player. And when my football team makes a transfer, I always look at it and go, okay, so this player we bought, he wasn't quite the player that I was hoping we would get, but is he better than what we've got? Yes, he is. Okay, so at least he's making our squad stronger. Are these players making the Liv squad stronger? Yes, they are, because at least 3 of them are in the top 50 in the world. So they do, but are the PGA Tour bothered about losing Mito Pereira, Sebastian Munoz, Danny Lee, Dean Burmester, or Thomas Peters? In fact, I'm not even sure whether all of them were on the PGA Tour. Absolutely not. They will be sighing a big sigh of relief that they have not lost any more major players. And as far as I'm aware, Liv said that they're locking in their 48-man team for the whole of the 2023 season. So does that mean that's it? There's not going to be any more potential transfers? I mean, that's what kind of made Liv interesting last year, wasn't it? Because there was just always these rumours of players that were going, and then Cam Smith went, and then Brooks Koepka went, and it all made it all very interesting to follow. And you were hearing rumours all the time. But if that's not going to happen this year, then they've lost quite a sort of real strong sort of media part of their armory to sort of like get some real interest in their product if there's not going to be all that rumour mill about who's going. But I don't know. That I did notice that it did say that team transfers were possible throughout the season. Now, I'm guessing that meant from team to team on Liv, but could possibly also mean, from outside of Liv. So it is possible that, I don't know, the Crushers or Smash or whatever, or let's take Ripper, who are an Aussie team. It is possible that they could sign Adam Scott, or I'm trying to think of another big Australian player, but I'm guessing that could happen as well. So maybe it does mean that Liv could still bring in some well-known players in the future. But I think those transfers were all pretty underwhelming, to be honest. Considering the players that were being rumoured to go. There was none. There was none really in the end that really were of any real note. I do think Thomas Peters is a good player, but I think the fact that he said that he got quite a late offer shows that they were fishing around trying to get bigger fish, and then when they realised they weren't going to, they threw an offer at Thomas Peters, and managed to get him in the net and get him to come across. But it definitely seems to suggest to me that they were hoping for bigger names than what they got. So we're going to leave Liv Golf now, go on to Netflix Full Swing. So I must admit, I was very excited to watch this. I saw the trailer, and I've also been a big fan of Drive to Survive in F1 as well, which is, phenomenal. And it's done so much for raising awareness of Formula One, particularly in America. I mean, America's got 3 Grand Prix now, and it's basically because of that program. And the same people were doing Netflix Full Swing. So I was very excited to watch it. When it went on Netflix, I literally binged the whole 8 episodes in one go. I just kept, it just, one would finish and I just had to watch the next one. And, I thought some of them were, overall for golf, I think it's good. I think some of the episodes were a lot better than the others. Like the first one with Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth, It was okay. I felt like it, a lot of the sort of banter between them was a little bit choreographed. It didn't quite come across as being really sort of natural, and it was a bit staged, I thought. But nice to hear the story that they've been pals since they were really young. There was some pictures of them there when they were sort of 7, 8 years old playing against each other, and they've come through and made it to the top of the stores, right to the top of the sport. So that was a nice. But I wasn't overly excited by that episode. The episodes that I was really interested in were the ones when the Liv thing started to happen. I mean, Netflix could not have fallen on their feet more than picking last year, to follow the PGA Tour when this whole Liv thing kicked off. And of course, they'd already signed up Dustin, who'd started to film when he was on the PGA Tour, and then he moved to the Liv Tour. They started with Poulter, the same, and also started with Brooks Koepka. I thought the episode on Brooks was quite interesting because, you do forget very easily that he was the man. For a little short period there, he was winning majors at an incredible rate, and then obviously got struck down by some injuries. And if you drop 5% of your performance in this sport or in any top sport, and you go from being at the top to being right in the also rounds, and that's where he's found himself. And I think that's very hard for someone like Brooks Koepka to deal with. When you're that good and your body just isn't allowing you to perform to the way you can. And that goes back to what I said earlier, and why I think Liv is the best place for him, because it's going to give him some time to rest and try and get those injuries right. So I thought his episode was pretty good, and the episodes where the whole Liv thing was going on was quite interesting as well. But without doubt, the standout episode by an absolute country mile was the one with Joel Damon and Gino Bernali as caddy. I mean, just the PGA Tour should be signing those two up. They're doing these on-course commentaries, aren't they, at the moment? If Joel Damon isn't doing one of them in the next event at Bay Hill, I will be absolutely flabbergasted, because he is an absolute jewel in their crown. He came across so well, and his caddy did, and their relationship is just wonderful. There was no feeling that any of that was staged. It all came straight from the heart. I just thought it was absolutely wonderful, and their episode was by far and away the best episode in the Full Swing series. Get into the comments and let me know what you think with Netflix Full Swing. Did you enjoy it? What episode did you think was the best? Be interesting to see what they do with season 2, won't it? Are they going to enjoy? Are they going to? Because it's not paid for by the PGA, I don't think. So they'll be free to go and film at Liv as well in season 2 if they want to. I don't know. I'm not sure about that, actually. I might have that wrong. Maybe it is just based on the PGA Tour. So unless a player that they're following in season 2 goes to Liv, there might not be too much Liv promotion. But Liv must have been happy, because they got quite a lot of time in that Full Swing series. But yeah, Joel Damon, I just think he just came across so well, so down to earth. I think, like Max Homer said, the guy is quite obviously a lot better than he realizes. I think if he ever realizes how good he is, he could be dangerous. So so overall, I enjoyed that. So lastly, it's going to be a bit of a shorter podcast this week, I think. Lastly, we're going to get on to official world golf rankings. So I've actually got something to show you here. Just give me a moment to get this up. So basically, this OWGR, official world golf ranking thing, keeps rolling on. And it's now been announced, or reported, I should say, that the decision on Liv getting OWGR points is now going to be in July. It was originally reported not long ago that it was going to be around the Masters in April. It's now apparently not going to be till July. Now, Liv and just before they started their first event, they announced that there is going to be a 4-player relegation and 4-player promotion on their tour, which they have never, ever talked about before. Never. And I absolutely guarantee you that is part of the stipulation for getting official world golf ranking points. That'll be one of the things that the OWGR have said they have to do in order to, meet some criteria to get points, because I think you're going to see give and take on both sides, because the OWGR has to award Liv points because they've got too many good players, and as soon as their rankings become inaccurate because they're not ranking all of the world's golfers, it's finished as an organisation. And interestingly, having done a little bit of research, I did not know this, but there is another world ranking list called the Universal Golf Rankings. I had no idea that there was actually another organisation that did golf rankings, but because OWGR has, always been the sort of one that the majors use, the Universal Golf Rankings never ever got used or mentioned. But they do exist. They work on a 1-year rolling strategy rather than a 2-year like OWGR. But they, quite shrewdly it would appear now, decided right from the start to include Liv golfers in their rankings. So if I pull up the first screenshot here, so this is, as of today, the first 8 players in their world rankings, and it's not a million miles away from the OWGR. They do award points in a slightly different way, but they have Rory McIlroy at 1 and Rahm at 2, whereas in the OWGR it's the other way around. But all the same sort of people are obviously on that first page: Cantlay, Scheffler, Schauffele, Thomas, Cameron Smith. Interestingly, still getting points for his Liv events, is 7th, which is actually lower than he is on OWGR, and he's not been getting any points. I think that's right. I think he's still sort of 4th or 5th or something. But yeah, if we move down, so then we've got 9 to 19. You can see there's Jochen Neiman here, who's another Liv golfer, ranked at number 12. He's slipping quite well down the rankings in the OWGR now. If we go down again, we've got more Liv golfers. Taylor Gooch at 20. Tommy Fleetwood's there because he is DP World Tour now. Paul Casey at 26. Actually, if we just go back, where is Dustin Johnson? Oh, there he is there. So 18. So, Dustin Johnson on the OWGR has slipped out of the top 50 now, I think, which is ridiculous. Everyone knows that Dustin Johnson is, not outside the top 50 in the world. In fact, I would say that he's a lot better than 18th, which is what the Universal Golf Rankings have got him. But for sure, that's a lot more accurate than the OWGR at the moment. So yeah, there's got Taylor Gooch there and Paul Casey, and then on the last slide, we've got Mito Pereira, who is number 38, and Thomas Peters, who is at 40. So I just thought it was very interesting that actually there is a world golf ranking system existing that has been ranking all of the world's golfers from all of the world's tours, and has got at the moment a lot more accurate rankings for their players than the OWGR. So this is another reason why OWGR have got to get their act together, because at any moment, if the majors said, right, okay, that system is not working now because of XYZ, we're going to move and we're going to use the Universal Golf Rankings for, criteria to get into our majors, then the OWGR, again, it's finished. That's it. It's gone. So they really have got to be careful and make sure that they sort it out sooner rather than later. And July seems quite late to me. And, by July, I think, most of the Liv golfers are going to have dropped out of the top 100. So, are the points that are going to be awarded to Liv going to be enough for them to fight their way back up the rankings? Are they ever going to get back to, a rightful position? Is Dustin Johnson going to be able to earn enough points from July onwards to work his way back from 80th in the world back to where he should be, which is somewhere around the top 10? I've no idea. Are OWGR going to backdate some points to get players back to the sort of places that the Universal Golf Rankings have got them? I don't know. What do you think? Have you ever come across the official, the universal golf rankings? Mark Wilkinson, if they're only playing 54 holes, then I find it strange that they may be awarded OGR points. It's not like cricket T20 rankings counting towards the one-day international. Yeah, you're right, Mark, and we discussed this in the last podcast. So at the moment, the criteria for OWGR is that it has to be 72 holes. Now, I'm only basing this on what I heard Alan Shipnuck say on his podcast. And he said that he had spoken, and remember, Alan Shipnuck wrote the Phil Mickelson book and is a very, very one of the most respected golf and long-standing golf journalists in the world. So when he said that he's spoken to an official World Golf Rankings board member, and that board member said that talks with Liv were very active and going very well, and Liv are going to be awarded official golf ranking points. And this board member has said that both sides were having to give up some ground to make it happen. So I think that Liv has had to put that 4-player relegation in place and 4-player promotion, which they were never going to do before. It was a 48-man closed invitation field. Now the bottom 4 drop off. Imagine if Phil Mickelson finishes in the bottom 4. He's gone. And they've paid him 200 million. 200 million. That could happen. The way that he's playing, it could happen. It probably won't happen, but it could happen. So I think that's something where Liv has had to give up there. And I think on this side, one of the things that the OWR have given up is to say that actually 54-hole events do qualify for ranking points. Now, that could be obviously that on a basis that the points are slightly less because they're playing a round less than the other events or something like that. Don't forget, Tiger's event was 54 holes. That got official world golf ranking points. There's been other 54-hole events that OWGR have awarded points to in the past. So they have bent the rules before, but it was more for an individual basis rather than a whole tour that was always doing 54-hole events. But I think everyone should prepare themselves for Liv getting official world golf ranking points, and it's purely because if they don't do it, then they're not gonna be an accurate world ranking system, and then the majors are gonna say, because the majors want Cameron Smith in their event, they want Dustin Johnson in their event, they want Brooks Koepka in the event. So if that's in danger of not happening because they're not ranking those players, then the majors will just come up with their own criteria. They'll just get rid of OWGR and they'll just come up with their own criteria. And then, OWGR in my opinion, has to award Liv golfers ranking points in order to survive as an entity. Because if it doesn't, it's gone. Because, the majors at any point could say, right, okay, that is now not an accurate system for criteria to get into our events. So actually, and this is just me thinking off the top of my head, and I said this in the last podcast as well, this is not based on anything I've read, it was just something that I thought of. They could simply just say, top 30 in the order of merit, on the PGA Tour, they get in. Top 20 on the TP World Tour, they get in. And top 10 on the Liv Tour, they get in. And if you're exempt, if exempt players are in those places, then it drops down to the next person in the list that gets in. It's easily done. OWGR is not important. It's not important at all. It doesn't serve any real purpose. Yes, there's a bit of kudos to the person who gets to number 1 in the world, but it could be disposed of at any time, and they know it. So, and they know that they've got to be seen to be ranking all of the world's golfers in an accurate way. So, Liv golfers, in my opinion, are definitely going to get world ranking points. I will quite happily come on this podcast in July if the decision has come out and they've been told that they're not, and I will say I got that wrong. But I think they will, and also I think it's also very interesting that and actually there's a comment actually just come in on it now, a meeting. Only thing is, senior reps from the majors sit on the OWGR board. Yes, but crucially, Keith Pelley and Jay Monahan have withdrew from the board for the Liv decision. And, they had to do that because there's obviously a massive conflict of interest. And also, it would have been incredibly damaging in the antitrust case that's going on between Liv and the PGA Tour as well, for them to be sitting on that board and be seen to obstructing Liv from getting OWGR points. There's so much going on in the dynamic of all of this that it's really, everyone's got to be very, very, very careful. And, it is purely because OWGR needs to survive. So, they have to come up with a solution. But as I've just seen there's a ready-made solution they could switch to. That, they could come up with their own criteria, like I just say, and say each tour gets places in our majors via this method. Or they could just turn around and go, well, actually, this Universal Golf Rankings, that seems to be doing a pretty good job of ranking the world's golfers. All the PGA Tour golfers were all in generally the same sort of positions that OWGR have got them. I mean, you've only got Rory McIlroy and Jon Rahm the wrong way round compared. And they've got Liv golfers sort of again, Dustin Johnson 18th in the world. I don't think that's a million miles away from where he should be. So I mean, they could turn at any point and say, we're gonna switch and we're gonna move away and do. We're going to move away and use another ranking system. Then OWGR is finished, and the people who are all earning money and getting paid off that all of a sudden have lost their gravy train. So it'll be interesting to see how it all pans out. But I just thought it was interesting. I don't know. Please mention in the comments. Did you know that? Did you know there was another World Golf Ranking System? Stevie, thanks for joining the conversation. I find it all comical. Politics in golf, who would have thought it? For me, PGA Tour are just salty. Yeah, it is. I am prepared to give Liv Golf a chance. I watched all of their events last year, and I have to say, I did quite enjoy it when it was on YouTube and I could watch it on my big TV. And I think there's a lot of Liv that is good. There's still some of it that is not great. It's like, the team thing, I honestly think they've got something there. They've got something, but they're just not quite maxing it out. And like, for me, when I'm watching it, the teams should be playing with each other more. Like, obviously because they're going out in 3 balls, it's difficult to do, isn't it? But if they could find a way where the teams were playing together. So, you had a teammate who holds a putt or, hits a great shot and you see him, high-fiving his fellow team member and they're getting pumped, like you do in the Ryder Cup and the President's Cup and stuff. If they could try and get that involved into the team element a bit more, rather than just seeing all these individuals and trying to work out which team is which. I mean, it's become a little bit easier now that they've got some of them have got team uniforms and team bags, and it's kind of getting a little bit easier to try and work out who's who and who's playing with who. But I can't work it out. I keep trying to think of a way, because I think this team thing, it's got something, but I just can't quite get it straight in my head. They've got to try and because there's no doubt about it, by the way, the players love it. I do not think when these players are talking about the team championship on Liv Golf that they are putting it on. I think they genuinely are loving playing the team aspect. And I think one really good thing was brought out in the Mayakoba event, where Bryson DeChambeau was just all over the place in the first 2 rounds. Both of his scores didn't count for his team, and and if he was going, he was way out of the running for the individual. I mean, he was right down near the bottom of the field. But in the last round, he was trying his little nuts off because he was playing for his teammates, and I think that within the team element is really good. It gives everyone something to play for throughout the whole tournament, rather than just having a really bad start to the tournament and going through the motions a little bit. So I think that's good, but I do think they need to get the team camaraderie on screen more, and I'm just not quite sure how they're going to do it. Stevie, they should make it more about the team than the individual. Team golf is awesome. Yeah, it is. Team golf is awesome, and we don't get it very often, do we? The European Tour just, had the Hero Cup. I mean, that used to be the Seve Trophy back in the day. I mean, Seve is my absolute all-time hero. It will be till the day I climb in the coffin. That guy is the reason I started playing golf. Why they changed that from the Seve Trophy to the Hero Cup. Why it couldn't be the Seve Trophy sponsored by Hero to get that, I don't know. But I am biased because I just absolutely love that man. Seve Ballesteros is just an absolute icon and my absolute hero, sporting hero. So it just saddened me to see that they decided to take away. And, the European Tour would not be where it is today without Seve Ballesteros. He is one of the main reasons that tour got to where it got to, even though it's in a little bit of decline now. But, they've got that team event, which hopefully they can build on and really get it going. Team golf is amazing. And, Liv Golf have got this team thing there. They just need to try and work out the way to, kind of really maximize it out. It'd be quite interesting if, these transfers start to happen. Apparently, it's like a football team. You can pay to take a player from one team to the other. Not quite sure how that works, whether the player gets paid or the team get paid and the team share the transfer fee. I've got absolutely no idea, but I'm sure it'll become a bit clearer as we go into the season. But if I'm going to stay sort of engrossed in Liv Golf for the rest of this year, they need to get it on a thinking British TV channel. I'll tell you that for nothing, because I've got one of these foldable phones. I mean, it's like a tablet. It's great. It's got a big screen, but it's still not much fun watching it on there. I need to be watching it on the TV. So hopefully they'll get a UK TV deal sorted out soon. Okay, so that's it for tonight's show. These shows are now going to be uploaded as a recorded podcast as well, because I've noticed that when they stay in the live section, they don't have the visibility. So this will now go up as a recorded podcast probably tomorrow. And then, unfortunately, I thought the live comments would continue in the recorder when you did the recording version, but they don't, which is a bit of a shame. But everyone can get involved in the comments on the recorded version as well. So yeah, every week Tuesday night at 9 p.m. UK time, we're going to have the Golf Week That Was podcast on this channel. It's been very pro based this week. I do always try and get a lot more of the sort of other golf news and interesting golf stuff on there as well. I was just a little bit stuck for time this week because I have been away working. Thank you again to everyone who's took the time to get involved in the comments. That is what really makes this podcast different, and hoping why, in the future it's really going to grow into something, because it's not a reactive experience. It's an interactive experience. You guys getting involved in the comments like you have tonight is what helps, shape the show. You can shape what we talk about. You can get your point across. We're not always going to agree, and that's good. That's always a good thing. It's always good to get other people's opinions and bring it up on the podcast. So I really appreciate everyone who's took the time to get involved. Okay, that's it. I'll see you here live, hopefully next week at 9 p.m. I've got a video going live mid this week. I think it's on the 2nd of March with some, I think it's a top 5 basic swing mistakes that people make. So nothing, I never try and get too technical, because I just think that technical swing advice YouTube is not the right place for that, in my opinion. But it's just, quite simple stuff that a lot of us just fall into bad habits. So hopefully you like that. And then Grant has got another caddy story coming. Him and Chris have been playing in another PGA Tour Monday qualifier. So he's got some really nice behind the scenes sort of raw, it's like a fly on the wall documentary series. That he's just recording it on his phone. He's not got any mics or anything, so the sound's a little bit, you know, a little bit sketchy and stuff, but I think it all adds to the flavour of it. So there's another one of those coming at the weekend as well. Okay, thanks again, and I'll see you in the next